welcome to the Reformed Journal podcast. My name's Jason Lief. I'm here with Luke Hawley. Luke is a professor, and he is an author and a musician. He's in a band called the Ruralists, and we're here to talk about all of those things and to talk about faith. So, Luke, how are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Last week of classes, so yeah.
Semester's ending well.
Good time to be a professor. Yeah.
So let's start there. How did you end up in Sioux Center, Iowa, of all places? Because you teach at Dordt University. How'd you end up there?
That's a great question. I don't really know. Let me tell a story to see if I can get the answer. Last week I was in Germany with my lovely wife who lived in Germany for a while. And we were traveling around, and she said something really nice to me, which was, I really like traveling with you. And I said, thanks. And she said, you just, you let a city unfold before you. And I thought, yeah, that's the only way I know how to do anything. And I think I am here in Sioux Center because I just sort of accidentally got here by letting the world unfold before me. So that's probably the best explanation. I didn't try to get here.
No.
I didn't try, I don't do a lot of trying.
No.
Yes.
No, and I remember when you showed up, it was at the Fruited Plain, and I remember thinking, we were sitting over in a booth and or having conversation, and I looked over and I thought we should really invite him over, but then I didn't really feel like it.
So I just ate alone.
No, you just came over. You invited yourself, which I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, no, that's I do that. So.
Yeah. That's good. So you're an author. Tell us about some of the books that you've written, published, awards you've won.
Oh, sure. So my first and actually only published book is called The Northwoods Hymnal. It came out in the spring of 2013. It's a collection of short stories and accompanying songs. So it's 10 short stories, and it has a record that you can download, or at least you could. I don't know if the download link is still available, but you can spin it on Spotify if you want. And yeah, each song has a story, and each story has a song that are sort of associated in some way. And in 2014, it won a Nebraska Book Award, which was really cool because I didn't live in Nebraska, and the book's not about Nebraska, but an award is an award,
But so. You went to school in Nebraska. We should clarify.
Yeah, I was in a low residency program. So I was in Nebraska 2 weeks a year for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I probably wrote most of the book there while I was alone in a hotel room instead of chasing around my toddlers. So I edited it during nap time. But
what's that? Say it again.
I edited it during nap time, but wrote
nice.
it.
Yeah.
Time to myself.
So let's talk a little bit about as a person who, when you came to Northwest Iowa, you really didn't know, you wouldn't consider yourself Reformed, or maybe you knew or didn't know what Reformed was, but you came from a different tradition. What is it about coming here that, if I can say this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of embraced this kind of reformational perspective? What about it has drawn you to it, and what keeps you kind of in it?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Acapella Churches of Christ. We didn't talk about doctrine, and we didn't talk about theology. And I mean, at least in my experience. And I think that was it as a way to pretend that we didn't have any, which of course becomes hard to defend when you have a bunch of things that you do that are all the same in every church of Christ you go into. And when I got here, I think I would call it an unveiling more than anything. Actually, you and I were at a presentation from Jamie Smith, and we were out on the sidewalk afterwards, and he called me an Arminian, and I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't mind being the fool, and I never have minded being the fool. And so I didn't know that I should be offended. I still don't really care one way or the other.
Right.
But yeah, I think a lot of the ideas were ideas that I have had, or that have been given to me from other people along the way. I'm a big tent theology guy. I mean, I like, borderline universalists from time to time. And so I really like the idea of thinking about everything in creation being under the umbrella of God, and that all of that is territory for people to explore and to play in and to work in, and to try to reconcile. So,
well, and speak to this a little bit, because you were in the Acapella Church of Christ, and yet you're a musician. Your brother is a musician. Is your sister a musician? She at least loves music. Your parents grew up taking you to music festivals.
More than my sister. She goes to more shows than anybody I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it was I think actually that is a lot of what sort of led me to my thinking that ended up sort of weaving in with Reform thinking, which was that there was this dichotomy that I couldn't stomach. Like, I just didn't believe it, right? Like, the doctrine of the church said, speak where the Bible speaks and be silent where the Bible is silent. And because there were no instruments in the New Testament, there should be no instruments in the new church. At least that was how I understood it. But I also read the Old Testament, so that didn't make a lot of sense to me. And like, I like playing guitar. My dad played guitar. He learned to play guitar listening to James Taylor records. My parents put my dad through his PhD program in marriage and family therapy by playing at libraries for kids. They were the pockets. And my mom wore an apron with pockets in it, and she would pull something out of each pocket, and then they would sing a song about it. Anyway, there was lots of music in my house, and so it didn't make sense that there was this music that we did at church, and then there was this other music. Yeah. And so when I was in high school and I started going, it was in youth group, and we had this poster in the youth group room that was like, if you like Pearl Jam, try Page of the Lion, or whatever it was. I remember thinking, like, this is so stupid. Like, music is music is music is music, right? And so when when people start talking about, I don't, two kingdoms and this, like, this dualism, I was like, yeah, none of that stuff makes any sense to me.
So how has that shaped the music that you do? Because you have a band. You guys, how long have you guys been around now?
3
years.
Something like
right.
that.
So how does that influence kind of embracing that perspective? And really what you're saying is you've had it all along. You just didn't have the language or the categories to kind of describe it. Now you'd feel like you have that on the reformational perspective. How does that influence then the way you write music and the way you perform music?
Yeah, I mean, I take songwriting very seriously. I mean, it's serious play and serious fun. And we take making that music seriously too, and it really is. It's a lot of fun, but we're not just I don't know, just jamming around. We're trying to make something, and something that has some some worth or some meaning, something that can speak to people. And I think, I mean, I see a lot of kids at Dort and probably at other Christian colleges that sort of, a lot of musical kids that devote their lives to praise and worship music, which is cool, right? I mean, if that's your jam, that's great. But that was never I'm not interested in leading worship. I feel very out of place in most worship settings. And I could I have written songs for worship, written, like, I don't know what you call that, church music. But I don't think, that was on sort of when it was requested of me. Otherwise, I'm just sort of, I'm just writing the thing that is coming to mind. Usually the questions that I have.
And what are some of those questions? So when you think about the Ruralist music, and I'm guessing that it differs at different times, different stages, but what are those questions that you feel like the Ruralist music is trying to ask?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've been joking that our next record is going to be called Love Songs from Middle Age, because I do write a fair share of love songs that are about like being and staying in love,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just falling in love. And so I mean that's one of those questions, like how do you really express to the person that you love most in the world that you love them most in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, how do you do that? And I could write those songs for the rest of my life and
Yeah.
never get to it.
And those things look different at different stages of life. I'm sure the songs
Right.
that you were writing when you were first married
Right.
or even dating are different than now at middle age.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, that's one of the questions I think I've been not wrestling, but at least playing with lately. I mean, our last album had a song where the chorus was or is, how do you do the right thing? You do the right thing, right? Right? And it's just this question of how do you do the right thing? What's even when you think you're doing the right thing, is it the right thing? How do you ever know?
Yeah.
I have been there's this there's a question that I guess it's probably been around philosophy forever, but I first heard it on The Good Place, which is what do we owe to each other? I've been thinking about that a lot, and I've been thinking a lot about how of how do you love your neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like people have a way that they think they want to be loved. Is that the way that you love your neighbor, or is it the way that you think you should love them? Or right? I mean, that how is.
And how much of that is shaped by kind of place? So, one of the interesting, I guess, questions, you've lived in St. Paul and up in the Twin Cities, and now you live in Northwest Iowa, Sioux Center. How has this place shaped your music?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has shaped it sort of shaped everything for me in a lot of ways. When we first moved to town, I had a 3-semester contract, and so but then there was my own job was going to open up again, so I was going to apply for my own job, and I was trying to sort of figure out if I actually wanted it or if I wanted to move back to the city or a city. And Sarah, my wife, and I were having this conversation, and she said, "Well, you're not much of a joiner." And I said, "Oh, that's not right. Like, I love joining things." And she said, "No, you're not much of a joiner." And then I actually saw Miroslav, what's his name?
Wolf, yeah.
Miroslav Wolf at Calvin Faith and Writing, and he talked about. I think the language he used was, you can stand outside the citadel and throw rocks and shout all day, but you can't actually change anything unless you walk inside. And I took those 2 ideas, which there were many other voices sort of saying those same things, and I decided to take them very, very seriously, and I decided to be a member of the place that I was. That meant joining a church and going, even if I didn't really like going to church, and meeting the people and trying to get to know all of the people. Mm-hmm. And that meant meeting my neighbors and trying to get to know my neighbors. And this is, I had never changed the oil on a car when I moved to Iowa, and I a couple summers ago took the engine out of my Subaru and changed the head gaskets and put it back in. And then I bought this 74 Beetle and got it running. And a lot of that was to have a relationship with my neighbor, Mark, who doesn't really know how to talk to people unless he's talking about engines. Yeah. And I was fascinated. I mean, I sort of, I have a voracious curiosity to me. So it was a lot of fun for me, but it was also trying to figure out how to talk to your neighbor and how to love your neighbor. So. And it works into everything, really. Like, it's in the songs. It's not only in the songs, but it's in the way that I think about making music. So here in town, we have this venue that we started. It's in the back of this coffee shop. It's called the Backpack. It's a super original name. And it's not the biggest place, and it's not the nicest place, and it's not the best sound ever played at, and it's not going to get me, playing the backpack 4 times a year is not going to get me on the main stage at Lollapalooza, right? But it is going to give something to my neighbors and to the people in my community, and it's going to give kids like your son something to look at and say, like, well, I can do that. I can make something out of anything, and I could share that with people, and they could know me in a way that that they wouldn't otherwise know me. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, in the backpack, and at some point, I'm sure we'll have Laramie on the podcast here. But he's kind of created a space here in Sioux Center in Northwest Iowa that is unique and original, and an oasis really for people who maybe don't fit into some of the other categories, and kind of a creative place to get together.
Mara called it a rehumanizing space, which I love. I think that's right.
No, that's good. So what's coming up? What's the future of the Ruralists? What do you got? I mean, you've been working on a book for a while. What's the status of the book? What's the status of the Ruralists? Where are you headed?
I've been working on a book for getting close to being able to say I've been working on a book for a decade, which is not cool, actually. It's a novel about music, making music, and what it means to. It really is a novel about what it means to live in community and be known by people. And I can't find anyone who wants to buy it. So,
but really, the music of your album, "Birth of Birds," came out of that. But.
Yeah, right. I sort of always write. I'm writing songs and fiction at the same time. Sort of one informs the other. So yeah, the songs came out of it. So the songs are out there. The book is not yet. I got a rejection letter this week that actually said it was the musical terminology was a little too jargony or something. So anyway, we'll see. Maybe I'll go back to it again, but probably at this point I'll just shelve it for a while. I've been working on some short stories about living in a small town because you write what you know, and I'm trying desperately not to write the middle-aged I work at a small college book, which I feel like all white male authors write in their middle age, and I think it's stupid. So instead I want to turn my attention away from the college and into the community.
Into the community.
Yeah.
Good. And any concerts? Have you guys gotten into what's the name of that concert down by Des Moines?
Hinterland.
Has that happened yet?
No, I don't know. That's the the great thing about being a small band is you can you set your big sites. They're still set small. So we would love that. I don't know. No, the state of Iowa doesn't know that the Northwest Corner exists.
Yeah,
and it's okay most of the time. So so we're just we're not. I'm trying not to care about I don't know, making a living as a musician or making it big or making money even. And I'm trying to care about just the making. Yeah. And so we're working on new songs, and I don't know what we'll do. Make some videos or something like that.
Sounds good.
Depends what your kid decides he wants to do.
Yeah. So for those who are listening, my son is their drummer. So I'm invested.
He's great.
He's a great drummer. Yeah. Well, hey man, thanks. This has been great. And this is our first podcast or video cast. I don't know.
Videos or something. Isn't that the attention span of the internet?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep. But what I'm going to try to do, since this is the first one, I'm going to see if I can somehow get one of your videos. You got a video of one of your songs, right?
Yeah. Sure. Plenty. Yeah.
We'll get it linked up so that our viewers can listen. But thanks. We've been talking to Luke Hawley from Dordt University and the Ruralists and my next door neighbor. Thanks for taking the time.
I'll see you tomorrow morning, I'm sure.
All right. See ya.
All right. All right. Dear God, it's complicated. All these ventricles and veins, pumping blood up to our brains, from our wild and woolly hearts. everything right. Right. It might be just as hard to love yourself. But if you want to get along, then you've got to get along. 'Cause it's not like we've got anybody